going on? What's going on? Okay, that's good. That's good. Yes, we're live. We're ready. We're ready to go. How y'all doing? A cloudy Tuesday. Yay. Glad we're doing well. Still adjusting some things. Can you believe it? It's like we're almost like it's less than 3 weeks of this, and then summer school. It's kind of crazy. I just hear in the news, hearing other like governors and stuff like that, even questioning the fact that we might not even go back to school in the fall. Really crazy. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with all that. Like, I think it was Cuomo, the governor of New York, was saying that, digital teaching might be the new thing. Won't have to waste millions of dollars in a classroom anymore, blah, 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 this and that. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever's going on with that. So it's kind of interesting, especially a lot of you guys moving on, senior years, junior years. This is a new frontier, so it's all super duper interesting. I don't know what the future's going to hold when it comes to that. But, just keep participating like we're doing. Don't change what we're doing here. If you continue to participate and be active, I think you're going to feel that next year this was like a trial run almost. This was a practice round. As even if hypothetically next year were to be something like that, like I said, we don't know. That would be the worst case scenario. Best case, everything's normal. But even if something like that were to happen, I think that there's going to be more software in place to support that. I'm actually really excited for summer school. It seems like we're getting a learning management software, learning management system called Canvas. And Canvas is super cool. Imagine being able to integrate all what we're doing right now into one thing. So I could do what I'm doing in Discord. I can do what I'm doing with the videos, website, all of that stuff. I can just integrate it into one little thing. So it makes things much easier. And that's going to be really exciting when that happens. So we're going to pilot that over the summer. And it's going to be good. I can't wait. So, but all right, what questions do we have on the final? Even just looking at it, we got some unit circle stuff. We got some parent function stuff. We got sign graphing stuff. Finding the zeros. Conversions. Sine graphs. Cosine graphs. Sketching polynomials. Number 8. All right, so convert the degree measure to radian measure. So an equivalent unit would be 180 degrees equals pi. Like 3 feet equals 1 yard, or 12 inches equals 1 foot. So those are equivalent units. And so what we do is we multiply by a ratio, and because I want the degree unit to cancel, that means I want degrees on the bottom. And so we're going to multiply by that equivalent ratio. Because if I divide both sides by pi, then I get 180 equals 1. I can multiply anything by 1, because 1 times anything is itself. So technically I'm multiplying by 1 here, which is the reason why I'm able to do that. So we have that. And then you just reduce that. So 72 into 180. So that's going to, by 9. So that'll be 8 pi over 20. And then 4. And that's 5. If I divide by 2. Oh, sorry, 10. And then, I feel like I did the division wrong somehow. My brain's not seeing it. All right, so four and 10, so 2 and 5. So 2 pi fifths. That seems kind of weird, though. Let me just double check that. I don't know, just for some reason, like I could be doing everything right. It's just for some weird reason, a red flag is just coming up, and I don't know why. Yeah. That's 2 pi fifths. Huh. I don't know why. I don't know why my brain was like red flagging it there. But yeah, so from here, what we just did is just simplify it. Yeah, it's so weird. Like my brain was just like, I don't trust what you're doing there at all. Any questions on that one? $27. All right. So for this one, it says write the graph. Yeah, let me go to 14 just real quick. Yes, so you'd multiply by 180 over pi. You got it. And then you'd simplify that. Yep. So I need to find what... So this says a sine of b times x minus c plus d. So that means I need to find the vertical shift, my phase shift, my period change, and my amplitude. So I need to find all those things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to screenshot this or snip this because it's going to be easier if I can write on this. All right. And I'm going to make this bigger. Okay. So all I need to do is basically just find the different elements. So the first thing is going to be my amplitude. So I need to know what is the distance from the center line to the highest or the lowest part. So it looks like this right here, this green line, that's going to be my center line. So then the distance from here to here is 4. So I immediately know A is going to equal 4. Any questions on that so far? Okay. Now to find my... Now I think it's going to be easier if we multiply... Oh, do I need to multiply the b through? Yeah, why not? So the... All right, well, we'll get to that in a second. So to find d, I'm just thinking like what would be the easiest to go about it. That's the vertical shift. Well, it didn't shift up and down, so that's going to equal 0. So we have those two elements so far. For b, that is going to be like what our period is going to be affected by. So 2 pi over my b equals my period. So if I were to look at my graph and try and find what my period is, then I can just plug it in for my period. And the period is the distance for one cycle. So for example, if I were to start here, what is the distance before it gets to that same spot? And so that right here, that distance there is my period. And so to travel, if I were to start at 0, it takes me going to pi to be able to get there. So I can say that my period is going to be pi. So that I could say 2 pi over b equals pi. Now I just need to solve for b. So I need to multiply both sides by b. So I get 2 pi equals pi b. Divide both sides by pi. And then I get 2 equals b. So immediately I have these values. Now let's just take a look at what we have so far, just because it'll kind of give us an idea of what's going on. So first of all, it can't be a, because my amplitude isn't 4. Maybe it's b. Maybe it can't be c, because my amplitude isn't 4. Maybe it's -4. Maybe somewhere it kind of flipped. I don't know. So that I should be a little skeptical about that. And maybe it's E. So right now I have B, D, and E. The second piece, my vertical shift is 0. Well, that's 0, that's 0, and that's 0. So it can't be any of those. So the next piece I can look at is going to be the... let me move this up. The next piece is going to be what my period is. And we said that my B value has to be 2. So going back to this, my B value is not 2 here, so it can't be B. My B value is 2 here for D, and it's 2 here for E. So it could either be B or E. It could either be those, or D or E. So it could be either of those. Now I just need to find what the horizontal shift is going to be. And so for the horizontal shift, that's going to be negative C over B. Now, the one piece about that, though, is, and I'm trying to think, this is where it's getting kind of... All right, I think this would be better. Normally, my parent graph, am I blocking it? Yeah, let me extend it. So normally my parent graph, it starts here at 0. Okay, so I need to think about how can my parent graph be constructed based upon it, it being started at 0. Well, looking at this graph here, it doesn't start at 0, it starts up at the amplitude. So I need to move along that graph to see where is it starting at 0 to then start this little pattern here. And so I have to move it over to here. Here, I'll do a different color. Here at that purple value. Once we start at that purple value, then it creates that image for that parent graph. So the distance that it takes for me to get to that value, that's going to be the horizontal shift, or that's going to be the C value. And so in this instance, that value right there is going to be 3 pi fourths. And so that's my C. So then looking back at the image, there's my 3 pi fourths. And so it's going to be E. So we have to go through and you have to basically find each of those different elements. So to do a recap again, A is the amplitude. So we had to find the distance from the center line to the highest or lowest value. And so we said that that was 4. Because it's from the center line all the way to the highest is 4 spaces. To find D, that's your vertical shift. So how is my graph moving up or down? And it didn't move up or down at all. So therefore, that's why my D was 0. To find my B, which relates to the period shift, or the period change, we start with our equation. 2 pi over B is my period. So we have to look at my graph and then figure out what the period is. And the period is just the distance for one cycle. So if it starts up at the top here, how far does it go before it gets back to the top? That distance there was pi. So I said 2 pi over B equals pi. Got B by itself. B was 2. And so I know that that's going to be 2. C represents the horizontal shift. So I looked at my graph, and I have to think of it, you compare it to the parent graph. And so my parent graph looks like this, right here. So where does it start looking like that on my graph? And I said, oh, it starts looking like that right here. And so the distance that it takes to get to there was 3 pi fourths, and so that's why my C value is going to be 3 pi fourths. You take all those values, A, B, and C, and D, and then you find which equation matches that. Any questions on that one? Cool. Any other questions? Ask away. Hoping this lack of questions is a good thing. It means you guys know everything. Will sine levy a peak amplitude directly on the y-axis? I don't fully understand that question. Newton, I don't know what you're referencing with that question. Maybe, so I'm going to interpret what I think you're asking. So the sine parent graph always looks like this. So the idea is, at what value would my sine parent graph then look like that? So for example, on number 28, it would be right here. Here, let me copy and paste that again. So on number 28, this value right here is where it would start to then be able to create that parent graph image. So this would be the parent graph that I would try and get. My horizontal shift or the c value would be negative pi thirds. The d value, my vertical shift, is 5. My amplitude would be 4. And then my period, for it to complete one cycle, looks like it's going to be 4 pi thirds. So that's my period. So I'd say 2 pi over b equals 4 pi thirds for that. So the graph itself doesn't necessarily have to hit the y-axis. Like, it just happened to hit the y-axis perfect on that one, just so it's easier for us to look at it and kind of determine what it's supposed to be. So like on these, I'm very deliberate about it to make it easy, but it doesn't have to peak there. Does that kind of answer your question there, Newton? You said you figured out number 30? Yeah, you divide the 116 by 4 and you get 0, so it's I to the 0 power, which is 1. Because you look at the remainder. Anyone else questions? Look at this, peak 5 viewers. What? Correct, yeah. It won't always look like the parent graph because of the horizontal shift. And so we have to figure out where did that parent graph shift to figure out what that horizontal shift is. So like going back to number 28, if I started here, that's when it created that horizontal shift. If I started right here. So then that horizontal shift was negative pi thirds. And so then now this image here, that is what my parent graph would look like for sine. If it asked for cosine, well then now I have to figure out how is this going to work for cosine. And so we would go to the parent graph for cosine, and we'd have to fit that image. So on this graph, for cosine, like hypothetically, I would say it would shift to here, and it would be negative. So it would be a negative cosine, and it would do this. Here, I'll do a different color. I'll do this red. So this right here would actually be negative cosine. Now the period shift would be the same. The horizontal shift is different. The vertical shift is the same. That's about it. Amplitude is the same. We just have to put a negative in front of it because the negative means reflection over the x-axis. But yeah, we just have to, basically because it told me a sine graph, I am fitting it to the sine parent function. Number 18. All right, it says determine the phase shift of the current function. So I know that we didn't talk about cotangent, which is okay. It's irrelevant because the phase shift or the horizontal shift is always negative c over b. The only time something would change would be the period. For sine and cosine, it's reciprocals. It's always the natural period's 2 pi, so you do 2 pi over b. For cotangent and tangent, the natural cycle is pi, so you do pi over b, but we're not looking at that. But the horizontal shift is always going to be negative c over b. And so for the 3 theta minus 8 pi, this right here is my c, this right here is my b. So I'm going to do negative c over b. So you're going to get 8 pi thirds. And that's going to be the phase shift. Now, the reason why they call it a phase shift versus, let's say, a horizontal shift is because if our keeps on going on forever, I know is really messy, you could say this is phase 1, and this is phase 2, and this is phase 3, and this is phase 4. And so it's like, how am I taking those phases and moving them? And they actually, when we examine, we start getting into the physics behind waves and how we transmute them, et cetera, by adjusting things like the amplitude and the phase shift and things like that. That's how we can get some of our different radio frequencies. Or adjusting the phase shift could help, in terms of traveling. Where is it going to bounce? Where is it going to go? So we're looking at the very, very abstract level versus more applications, but it's essentially where it is. Does that make sense now, Alexis? Anyone else questions? Yay. And it's okay if you don't have questions now. We still have Thursday to look at it. It says divide using synthetic division. So synthetic division, because it says x, we're dividing by x plus 2, you take whatever the 0 is and you put that in the box. And then you write the coefficients out in descending order. So 5, 2, -19, and 6. And then you're going to follow the pattern. You add straight down, you multiply, you put it in the next column. You add straight down, you multiply, and you put it in the next column. Add straight down, multiply, put them in the next column, and you add straight down. And so then from there, you count backwards, starting with the remainder. So then this is our remainder. Constant x and x squared. So it's going to be 5x squared minus 8x minus 3 plus 12 over x plus 2. So you take the remainder and you put it over what we're dividing by. And so since we're dividing by x plus 2, we're putting it over x plus 2. I think this is the first time writing on this monitor. Like, that just came out smooth. Just like writing it out, it was like smooth. Anyone else questions? Any others? You guys will probably never miss 37 ever again, right? Find the inverse of a relation. You just switch the x and y. I know a lot of you guys ripped your hair out because of that one. Trick question on 53, determine the amplitude. Right? It's just 4. Your amplitude can't be negative. The negative means reflection. Okay, well, it seems like we don't have any more questions, which is A-OK. What we'll do is we'll just we'll continue this on Thursday. So please make your way through the document so we can ask more questions on Thursday. You can more than welcome, please ask questions on Discord. Send them. So there's no worries there as well. Don't ever hesitate on that. Yeah, and I'm gonna figure out if I want to use Alex for the final, if I'm gonna able to use Illuminate. Last time I had there were bumps in the road for the Illuminate, so probably just gonna have to do Alex. Be like 20 questions or something. It won't be super major or anything like that. But other than that, thanks guys for showing up. This is really awesome. The last little thing is just know that by the district policy, and the fact that you guys technically have like a 2-week gap to get things in, the last assignment for this class is going to be on the 21st. It's going to be kind of dense-ish, but actually it's going to be on the 18th, but it's going to be from there all the way through. But it's basically going to be a getting you ready for pre-calculus type thing. It'll be a really good, solid review of almost all the things that we went through. If you can go through the document and answer everything correctly, pre-calculus, getting that first step into pre-calculus, easy. Like, you're going to step onto that, the train can take off, and you're not going to feel like you're going to be left behind. And so I'll break it up into like sections, and we'll say that, those sections are the big package of what's going to be due and stuff like that. So it'll be good. Thanks, guys. I hope you guys have a really good Tuesday. Stay healthy, stay safe, get some sunshine, even though it's kind of cloudy. It's nice and cool outside, so that's going to be good. But other than that, I'll see you guys later. See you Thursday.